Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Today, we're going to continue talking about our featured novel for the month of September, The Wind in the Willows. This is a story with animal characters who actually behave like human beings. And let's see, who do we have? We've got the main character, which is Mole. That starts off the story. Then he meets Rat, moves in with Rat because he likes the river lifestyle. And then later on, we meet Toad, who's nice, but he's also kind of arrogant. And then, of course, they go after Badger. They look for Badger in the forest there.
The wild wood.
For some kind of help there.
Yeah.
And those are the four characters we have so far. And where we left off, they actually rescued Toad, and Toad turned over a new leaf. He was no longer obsessed with cars, and he decided to be a responsible, outstanding member of society.
Yeah, they kind of staged an intervention. Those are modern day terms. If you have a friend who maybe is having a difficult time, maybe they're addicted to drugs or some other bad thing that's hurting their life, you'll have friends that will have a meeting and they'll surround that friend and say, you have to stop this. We're here to save your life. They staged an intervention, and you know what? It worked this time. Toad did turn over a new leaf, and he became modest and humble, and he wanted to make up for his past behavior, which wasn't very good. And it had a happily ever after sort of ending that we talk about in fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after. So this is a tale of friendship. I know they're animals, but they have human characteristics, and I think it's interesting to take a look at the animals and see if you have any friends that share the same sort of characteristics. And if your friends would come to your rescue if you got into a bad spot or were doing things that were hurting you. Today we're going to talk about the themes in the book. So let's get started. We're going to read through day 3, and then we'll be back.
One thing that's immediately obvious on reading Kenneth Grahame's The Wind in the Willows is the contrasting personalities of the four principal characters. For example, both Mole and Toad tend to be impulsive. Mole shows this when he abruptly stops cleaning and kicks off the story by emerging into the outside world, and also when he ventures into the wild wood. Toad, meanwhile, is vulnerable to rapid changes of heart and generally acts without considering the consequences. However, Mole quickly learns from his mistakes, while Toad undergoes many woes before he finally develops some self-control. To give another example, Mole's impulses are usually fueled by his desire to experience new things, while both Rat and Badger can be quite conservative and content to keep their lives the way they are. Yet it is Mole's adventurousness that prompts the meeting with Badger and the latter's decision to intervene and help Toad. Without Mole, Rat and Badger might have let things go on until it was too late. Despite their differences, the four characters share a deep and abiding friendship that stands up to whatever life throws at it. Rat overcomes his dislike of new things and goes on Toad's caravan trip so as not to disappoint his friends. He also risks the wild wood to help Mole. When Toad's issues are about to plunge him into financial ruin or worse, his three friends take on the difficult task of curing him of his driving addiction. And of course, all four ultimately unite to confront the wild wooders and restore Toad Hall to Toad. None of this would have been possible without the power of friendship. Okay, as promised, we're going to discuss the actual themes and ideas of our featured work of literature for the month of September, The Wind in the Willows. And one thing that's immediately obvious on reading Kenneth Grahame's The Wind in the Willows is the contrasting personalities of the four principal characters. So that is obvious, it's very clear when you read this book that these personalities are very contrasting, which means they're opposites, basically. We've got different kinds of personalities there, and that's what contrasting means here. They're opposites, and they're quite distinct and unique from each other. And yes, the four principal characters, Mole, Rat, Badger, and Toad, all have very unique personalities.
That reminds me of a very familiar phrase we use, and that's opposites attract. We use it to talk about couples a lot of times, getting together, and maybe you're a really shy person, but you get together with someone who's not. My parents were opposites, complete opposites, but they actually helped each other, I thought. My mother was very shy. My dad wasn't, but my dad could sometimes be too strong, and my mother would help kind of soften him up. So opposites attract. So we've got contrasting personalities of these characters. Mole, according to what I've read, actually was a character that the author Kenneth Grahame wrote to kind of symbolize his son, who was very quiet. He couldn't see very well and didn't do very well outside his house. So Kenneth Grahame would make up these really crazy stories, and that's where this particular book comes from. He had told his son some of these fun stories when he was just a child to make him feel like he was out there having fun just like normal kids. So, yeah, they're very different. Mole and Toad tend to be impulsive. What's impulsive, Tom?
It means you don't really think about what you're doing. You just do it, and that's what Mole did at the beginning of the story. He was underground. He came out for some fresh air, and he thought, I like it out here. I'm going to go check out that river there. And he just forgot all about his home underground. So, yes, that's when you're impulsive, and Toad is the same way. They were hit by a car or something, or almost hit by a car, and then suddenly, out of the blue, he became obsessed with driving, and then he started to pursue that hobby. So yes, that's when you're impulsive, when you just start doing something unexpectedly and you don't really think it through.
Yeah, it's kind of a dangerous way to live. It's very risky. So you really don't think through your actions before you take them. Some people don't really think about the consequences, and they're very impulsive. So we're going to be talking more about that. Now, Mole shows this, as Tom said, when he suddenly just stops his spring cleaning, wants to get out of there, and goes up out of his hole and decides, I like this nice clean air. And then he runs into the river and he feels like, this looks like more action, more fun. So he is showing his impulsive personality when he does this. He also ventures into the wild wood. You would think he would be a little bit more cautious because he can't see very well, but he's not. So, yeah, he goes into this unknown world not knowing what he's going to find.
Right. To venture just means to do something that may be dangerous or to go somewhere that may be dangerous. And so he ventures into the wild wood. He goes in there. And Toad, meanwhile, or Toad at the same time, is vulnerable to rapid changes of heart and generally acts without considering the consequences. So if you're vulnerable, that means you can be easily attacked or you can be easily harmed. And in this particular case, he's vulnerable to rapid changes of heart, which means his emotions can change pretty quickly. And I suppose that means nobody really knows how he's going to feel from one moment to the next. And he also acts or does things without considering the consequences. Consequences are things that happen as the result of something. And indeed, there are always consequences in life. For example, if you don't like to go see the dentist or you don't like to see the doctor, well, there are going to be consequences. You're going to have some bad teeth. You might get really sick. You might die someday because of that. Those are the consequences of not going to see the dentist and the doctor very often.
Right. So you definitely want to think about that. You could be vulnerable to persuasion by bad friends, where you have friends who will, they're very convincing and they can talk you into doing things that you shouldn't. So be careful. I think you need to examine yourself and see what you're vulnerable to, how you might face some sort of danger in the future because you're easily persuadable or your personality tends to lead you into trouble. So, yeah, he was definitely vulnerable to rapid changes of heart, and he doesn't really consider consequences before he acts. That's a dangerous way to live.
So that's Toad, and however, Mole quickly learns from his mistakes, while Toad undergoes many woes before he finally develops some self-control. So Mole does make some mistakes. Mole is impulsive, but he quickly learns from his mistakes. Gee, I better not do that again. And he changes his ways pretty quickly. But Toad has lots of woes. He undergoes many woes. He has lots of different troubles. And then finally, at the end, he develops some self-control. So it takes Toad some time to learn his lesson and to turn over a new leaf, whereas Mole learns much more quickly.
Yeah, woes here is just another word for difficult experiences. So he undergoes a lot of challenges, difficult experiences, many woes. Sometimes you'll hear people say, woe is me, poor me. Oh, yeah, well, he actually puts himself into these situations. So it's hard to feel sorry for Toad because he doesn't think before he acts. He just is way too impulsive. Now, to give another example, Mole's impulses are usually fueled by his desire to experience new things. So if you have an impulse to do something, you have a very strong desire that makes you want to do something, to take some sort of action. You might have an impulse to go and eat a whole, chocolate cake. I've had those impulses before. I know when I'm very stressed out, I'll always have an impulse to eat things I shouldn't or stay up too late and not get enough rest. Sometimes those impulses can make you sick, So he had an impulse that was fueled by a desire to experience new things. I think he was bored with his life. And he felt like, wow, living underground, there's no excitement. Everything's always the same. So he was vulnerable to those impulses to just experience new things.
And remember earlier we saw the adjective form of this word, impulsive. So again, if you're impulsive, you do things rather quickly. You have sudden urges to do things. And so here, impulse is the noun form. And yes, indeed, Mole does have those impulses, but they're fueled or they come about by his desire to check out new things.
Yeah.
And Rat and Badger can be quite conservative and content to keep their lives the way they are. And we'll explain that sentence in just a couple of seconds. But right now, we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要来看一下柳林风声这个故事。我们在第一天的时候曾经说过，柳林风声这个故事其实在迪士尼它有拍成电影，不过好几十年前了，然后甚至还有拍成真人版的电影。那这个柳林风声它这书到底什么时候出版呢？其实是1908年，我的妈呀，其实是20世纪初的时候就已经出版的耶。好，所以它其实是一个很经典的故事，这也就是为什么我们到现在还有很多的不管是小朋友还是大人都还是会读这个故事。好，我们现在来看一下这个故事当中，首先分析一下，其实最主要的呢就是它的主角4位，你还记得是什么吗？一个是鼹鼠 Mole， 另外一个河鼠 Rat， 还有一个呢就是蛤蟆Toad， 另外一个是 Badger， 是老獾。其实他们的性格对比是很鲜明的，所以故事会很好看。比如说性格是如何来鲜明呢？例如我们在第一段第2句看到，像鼹鼠跟蛤蟆其实都蛮容易会冲动的。第2句逗点之后有一个动词的 tend to do something， 我们特别把它框出来抓出来，因为我们中文常会讲说很容易怎么样，我们只要看到容易心里一定会想 easy， 对不对？但是人不会 easy to do something， 如果很容易冲动就表示个性如此，有这种倾向，所以通常会说 tend to do something。 这个 tend to 有时候我们中文还会翻成通常会如何，但是这也都是一种倾向 tendency， 所以 tend to do something 可以特别学着如何来去使用它。下次看到容易怎样或通常怎样的时候，不要只想着 easy 或 usually， 想着人 tend to do something。 那我们现在就要仔细看了，鼹鼠如何呢？鼹鼠就是突然停止打扫，然后就搬去跟河鼠住嘞。这个很特别，对不对？那蛤蟆又如何呢？蛤蟆就是很容易马上就改变心意了，通常都不会考虑行动的后果。所以我们在第一段第4句的地方， 我们如果今天要对比两件不同的人事物，常常可能会说 while A 怎么样怎么样，逗点 while B 如何如何如何。第一段的第4句，我们在 told 的后面逗点看到了一个 meanwhile。meanwhile 虽然它有表示时间同时的意思，但是在这里是强调故事发展的同时，虽然 mole 鼹鼠如何，但同时 told 它的情况是怎样。那因为他通常都不考虑行动的后果嘛，所以有一些这个读者呢，在看这个故事的时候，会想到一些责任感啊，或者是 consequences 类似这样的主题。可是他们两个角色不同的地方是在于，鼹鼠其实很快就会从自己的错误当中学到教训，但是蛤蟆是经过了很多苦难之后才培养出这样的自制力。所以在第一段第5句蛮重要的，因为我们刚刚说要对比对照两个人事物的时候，常常会用到连接词的然而如何如何，它就出现在第5句。在 while 的前面，我们看到的是 Mo quickly learns from his mistakes， 很快就学到教训。 while 然而连接词 Toad undergoes 会经历了 many oaths before he finally develops some self-control， 就是所谓自我控制这件事。当然另外还有一个例子啦，就是鼹鼠它的冲动通常是因为它想体验一些新的事物，但是河鼠跟老獾他们这两个角色就相对的比较保守，然后呢，对于保持现状比较容易感到满足。所以你看在第6句的地方，因为我们又要对比鼹鼠还有蛤蟆，还有呢我们又要对比河鼠 rat 跟老獾 badger， 所以又出现了逗点之后的 while， 它都可以指的是逗点前后人事物的状况的一个对比对照。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. And right now we're talking about personality traits of the main characters. Remember, Mole is impulsive, Toad is impulsive, but Mole learns from his mistakes quickly, whereas Toad has lots of different woes before he finally gets it, before he finally gets some self-control. And then we also talked about Mole's impulses. They're usually fueled by his desire to learn new things. And Rat and Badger can be quite conservative in comparison, and they're content to keep their lives the way they are. So we know what conservative is. That just means to keep things the way they are. You don't like to try new things. And to be content means to be satisfied, and you just don't feel like you need any change. Everything's fine the way they are. I don't need to change. And that's how we're describing Rat and Badger. Yeah, they don't want to take any chances. They're not impulsive. They just want to keep their lives the way they are.
Yeah, I think Mole, even though, he was living kind of a boring life, he was very vulnerable or susceptible to just changing things up. He didn't want to live the same life all the time. Whereas Rat and Badger kind of like the status quo. They like the way things are. They don't want to give themselves problems. But it's Mole who is very adventurous. That's an adjective form there for someone who likes to just get out there and have a grand adventure, and aren't afraid of potential problems or consequences. I have a group of, there are 4 of us, and it's very interesting. 2 of us are more conservative. We like the status quo, and the other 2, they want to go climb, these high mountains and ski, these black ski runs, which is the scary, more dangerous ski runs. But, it makes the group dynamic, the feelings between the friends very fun because we're all different. Well, Mole is very adventurous, so he prompts, and it's that trait in him that prompts the meeting with Badger. And Badger, it says the latter's decision. The latter refers to Badger and his decision to intervene or to get involved in something that he wasn't involved with, at first. It makes him want to help and get involved and help Toad, who is really having a hard time. I would describe Toad as someone who needs to reach rock bottom, which is the worst situation you can reach if you're addicted to something, before they're willing to listen to their friends or willing to change or turn over a new leaf. Sometimes they have to reach rock bottom, which is horrible, before they'll do anything to change their bad situation.
Right, so again, Mole's adventurousness prompts the meeting with Badger, and then the latter here just refers to the last thing mentioned ahead. So that means Badger made the decision to intervene, to get involved, and to help Toad. That's what to intervene means. You involve yourself in a situation. Most people don't like to intervene, but sometimes it seems like the people are just not able to solve their problems, and somebody needs to come in and solve those problems for them. And indeed, Badger intervenes, he gets involved and helps Toad. And without Mole, Rat and Badger might have let things go on until it was too late. So Mole came along and Mole helped out the situation. But if they did not have Mole, then Rat and Badger may have let the situation continued, and then it would have been too late to fix. They would have been in big trouble.
Yeah, there are good people out there that are willing to get involved in something, even at the risk of hurting themselves, to help other people. I had a friend who once said, "Don't save all the whales, Steph." I saw something that was unfair at a job, and I wanted to go and defend that person. And another friend said, "Don't get involved." I did, and I ended up having to leave the company. But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right. And I like that Badger knew that getting involved might hurt him, but he went ahead and did it to help Toad and save his life, actually. So despite their differences, we've got 4 characters that share a deep and abiding friendship. We'll often use that phrase, a deep and abiding friendship. Abiding just means continuous, something that continues for a long time. And it stands up to whatever life throws at it. If you have those kind of friends, they're willing to sacrifice to keep them forever, because those are the best kind of friends you can have in life.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, when things happen to you, we say life throws these things at you. They're unexpected things in life, and we have to deal with them. And maybe you get fired from your job, or somebody you know dies or something like that. And so, yes, indeed, they learn how to stand up to whatever life throws at their lives. And Rat overcomes his dislike of new things and goes on Toad's caravan trip so as not to disappoint his friends. So if you overcome something, that means you face that difficulty and you resolve it. And yes, indeed, he does not like new things, but he overcomes that dislike. He overcomes that fear of new things and actually goes on this caravan trip because he did not want to disappoint his friends. Oh, I don't really want to go, but I don't want to disappoint them. They really want me to go, so okay, I will go along. And therefore, he overcame his dislike of the trip, and he actually probably had himself a good time.
Probably, yeah. So, yeah, try to overcome something. It just means you succeed in dealing with something that's difficult. Or sometimes we say someone was overcome with emotion, or overcome
with grief.
With grief, where you can't control your emotions. They're so strong. Here, it just means he was able to succeed in dealing with something that was difficult for him, like a problem or a difficulty. A lot of people dislike new things, and they just want to, stay with the status quo, do something that's comfortable. They don't like to leave their comfort zone. We'll often say that. Get out of your comfort zone. Try new things, experience new things, live life to the fullest. Well, he goes and because he doesn't want to disappoint his friends, but at the same time, he learned some great lessons himself. To disappoint somebody is to kind of let somebody down. You don't want to let somebody down if they're your friends. Maybe you don't do what you said you would do, and you disappoint them. Or maybe you can't go to a party they're throwing, and that disappoints them. I had a concert that I had to sing in, and I had some friends who couldn't come, and that was disappointing to me. But, he tried not to disappoint his friends, and at the same time, he learned a lot of things.
Indeed. So Rat overcame his dislike of new things And he also risks the wildwood to help Mole. So he's also had a personality change there. He's conservative, but he still went into the wildwood despite the fact that it was a dangerous place because he wanted to help Mole. And when Toad's issues are about to plunge him into financial ruin or worse, his three friends take on the difficult task of curing him of his driving addiction. So we've got Toad's issues or his problems. They're going to plunge him into financial ruin. So here we've got the phrase to plunge someone into, which means to quickly place them into that situation. And yes, financial ruin just means you've lost all your money, you're broke, you're bankrupt. And yes, indeed, his problems will quickly make his life a living nightmare, basically. He's going to be plunged into financial ruin. So the three friends actually help him out. They cure him of his driving addiction.
Yeah, so use plunge when you're talking to a really sudden change. Because plunge, the verb itself means to jump or dive into something with a lot of energy. But it can also mean to fall suddenly. We often describe planes as plunging into a mountain or plunging from the sky. Here you're plunging into something, a situation. And if you're plunging into ruin, you're facing a situation where something's destroyed or a great destruction happens. Financial ruin, you probably lose your job, your savings, all your money. Toad's used to having a lot of money, so this would be a bad situation for him. But his three friends take on that difficult task of trying to cure him or help him overcome his driving addiction. And of course, all four ultimately unite, come together to confront the wild wooders, and they beat them. They beat some respect for themselves into these wild wooders, and they restore Toad Hall to Toad. They give it back to him. Remember, the wild wooders had taken possession of Toad Hall. They give Toad Hall back to Toad, and now he's going to be able to keep his hall beautiful, his mansion beautiful too, because he's overcome his driving addiction. Turn over a new leaf, become humble, and none of this would have been possible without the power of friendship. The power of friendship is so strong.
And that's how we end our lesson for today. Hopefully, we will inspire you to read this book yourself. But before we say goodbye, we need to listen to our Chinese teacher.
不过第一段啊，就有特别提出，其实就是因为鼹鼠它的冒险精神，所以才会促成大家认识老獾，然后呢，大家一起去帮助蛤蟆。而且如果没有鼹鼠啊、河鼠啊、老獾啊这些事情啊，就是其实就会发展的话呢，这个结果就很难想象了，就为时已晚了。我们在第一段最后的7跟8句的地方有看到很重要的片语，也有很重要的句型。这个句型在第7句啊，其实就是所谓的分裂句或强调句。我们先把第7句简化一下，我们把 yet 这个强调的但是先遮掉，然后我们来看一下，在句子当中有 it is 跟 that， 我们把这3个字先抓出来。如果你用手指把这3个字遮掉的话，你会发现句子还蛮完整的耶。句子会剩下 most adventurousness prompts the meeting with Badger。 好，后面的 and 我们先整个省略掉了，因为促使后面有很多的事情发生。我们把句子简化之后啊，来谈谈这个所谓的分裂句、强调句。为什么它这个强调又叫做分裂句呢？因为它把原来的句子分裂了，它把原来的句子想要强调的部分放在 it is 跟 that 的中间，也就是说，原本句子本来很平顺，就是 most adventurousness prompts the meeting with Badger， 就是因为鼹鼠它很这个冒险啊，所以就促使认识老獾这件事。但是我们要强调，就是因为他的冒险，所以才会认识老獾啊。这个时候，我们把 most adventurousness 放在强调的部分，句子就会变成2个句子的合并哦。It is most adventurousness that prompts the meeting with Badger。 好，所以这个是强调句、分裂句。那另外一个第8句呢，其实啊，它就是一个 without， 也就是假设语气。without 后面加上人事物，指的是没有什么人事物。如果没有 mole, rat and badger， 那么 toad 蛤蟆 的事情的发展就不会是那样咯。好，所以我们要把过去的事情否定掉的时候 without more 后面会发生什么事啊？我们会用 wish could might 加 have PP， 这是一个与过去事实相反的假设语系句型。那我们在这个句型当中直接看到第二段最后一句，文章的最后一句也是同样的与过去事实相反 without 要不是当时如何如何的句型，只不过这个 without 放在后面。在第二段最后一句当中 None of this would have been possible without the power of friendship， 如果没有友谊的话wish could might 加 have PP 这些都是不可能的。什么事呢？就是偷的变好，然后可以把他的庄园抢回来。所以其实柳林风声这个小说就是在谈 friendship mentorship， 就是在谈不离不弃的真友谊。或许有空大家也可以借来看看哦。我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's all for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to presenting another unit on literature next month in October. Please join us then. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
And I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.